Now please join me in welcoming Lorrie Moore and Donna Seaman to the CPL stage.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for coming, especially when the president is just down the street.
It's tough getting around.
We're not running against him, so I just want to let you know.
Yeah, really.
No, I think a vote for Joe is a vote for Jill.
Yes. There you go. I totally agree.
She's doing well. Okay.
So I'm going to ask sort of an opening question to introduce the narrators in this amazing novel. And then Lorrie's going to read a bit for us, and then we'll talk. So, Lorrie, I thought we would begin by talking about Elizabeth, who opens the book. Elizabeth is writing letters to her dead sister in the form of a journal. I love the way she writes. She writes that her truest self is when she's alone in the dark. I would add, with pen in hand. I think most writers feel that way. Can you tell us a little bit about the origins of Elizabeth?
Is this a yes or no question? I could say no or yes.
If you want to say no, that's fine.
No,
I have more questions.
No, say yes. I was thinking about a boarding house in the 19th century and how people in the 21st century might take a road trip and stop at this boarding house that had a particular history. And so it begins with letters from the mistress of the boarding house. And to have a house sort of straddling time like this and crossing centuries is something of a steal from Tom Stoppard's Arcadia, which, if you know that play, you know that there's a house set up on the stage and two different dramas from different eras in history are happening simultaneously, or alternately and then simultaneously. So I had that in mind. Tom Stoppard, I have to say, said he stole that idea from some 16th century play. So it's somehow a convention in the theatrical world, but I encountered it through Arcadia. And so I wanted these two stories to sort of sit side by side, the 21st century one set in 2016, the 19th century one set in 1870, 71, and sort of have a conversation, but they don't interlock in a very tight, easy way. They just kind of are sitting side by side in a kind of vibrating way. And they have things in common, and there are, as I wrote it, I, made little additional connections between these two sections. And there's a bathtub, and there's a dead body in both sections, and I don't want to spoil too much, but...
No, that's good.
And so her voice kind of came to me through a bunch of research that I was doing. I read Mary Chestnut's diary, which is a very interesting diary that Mary Chestnut then tried to turn into a novel, and she died before it was finished. Do you know that diary? Ken Burns used it in his Civil War documentary. He had Julie Harris be the voice of it. It's a fantastic diary written by the wife of a South Carolina senator who is extremely chagrined at the secession, at the war, at slavery, but she's married, but she is a Southerner, she's married to this senator. And she then later in the 1870s, after the war, she did try to turn the diary into a novel, but died before she finished. So she thought it would be successful as a novel somehow, or she was encouraged to do it. But it's widely thought that that Margaret Mitchell stole a lot of it for Gone with the Wind, and she probably did. But I had a research fellowship, and I was just going every which way with my research, which is what's really fun about research. You just go down these rabbit holes, you go here, you go there. And a lot of things you just can't end up even using, especially if you're a novelist. But I soon had a voice in my head that I conjured her, and she was just there in my head. And I also by this time had moved to Nashville, and so I started to hear a lot of Southern voices, and there's a certain picturesque way that Southerners will talk. I mean, Nashville's sort of a mix of Southerners and Northerners, but so I found her rather quickly in my head as a voice. And so I had no trouble getting back to her. It's a little mysterious. I mean, there was the research, but there's also just the magic of characters appearing in your head, and you can hear their voices, which sounds like schizophrenia, and maybe is. Who knows?
Oh no, her voice is extraordinary. I just love it. And she's very, condensed. So you get this immediate feeling of sort of the haunted landscape from the Civil War. And, the death is permeating the very ground.
Right. And there's a kind of poverty. She's kind of making do with things. I mean, she's earning money running this boarding house, but she has to deal with complaints about the food and people who have nowhere else to live are living there, and she's patched together certain things because the windows have been broken.
Oh, I love the windows.
Yeah, the ambrotypes in there. But she has a particular border that starts to become part of her part of the story. And we can talk about that or not talk about that.
We don't want to give too much away. Well, that's Elizabeth, and I love that she's writing to her dead sister. I mean, it just sets up this whole sort of haunting thing. So then, the Civil War, the biggest disruption ever, and she lives near, one of the bloodiest of the battlefields. Then we come to 2016, which in Chicago was initially a joyful year because the Cubs won the World Series. And I only mention this because the World Series is in this novel when we meet Finn, and he goes to see his brother who's dying. And the World Series is something he hopes will keep him going. But the Cubs won the World Series, and then I feel that we all lost the presidential election. So
there were lots of reversals that year, and I have that mentioned in the book, where the Indians were really ahead in the World Series, and the Cubs came from behind. And then the Super Bowl was another one where there had never been a losing team that was losing by that much. Win the Super Bowl, that much at halftime. And then, of course, the election flipped. The loser, again, wins, and then also if you count the Academy Awards, you remember they gave the Oscar to the wrong film and had to snatch it back and give it to, the right one. So there were a lot of flippages then. And also, it was the hottest year on record, 2016. We still haven't had a hotter year than that, although apparently next year is supposed to be it, so just get ready. 2024, oh no, so it's a presidential election year.
Right.
So to some extent, this is a little bit like a climate change novel. It has a climate change aspect because someone is buried before a freeze or during a freeze, and then there's a thaw, and maybe she's alive. She just seems to not be in the ground anymore.
Such an amazing scene. Well, shall we meet Finn?
Okay.
He's somewhat of a rogue high school teacher, I would say.
Well, he's from Illinois.
Yes, he's from Illinois.
He loves Lincoln.
He loves Lincoln.
He loves Lincoln, and he likes to look past the official narrative of everything. So he teaches that to his students, to question things that they ordinarily wouldn't question, and that the school he teaches in wouldn't ordinarily question. And so as a result of many things, but certainly because of that, he's suspended from his job. He goes out to New York to visit his dying brother, then he's called back by his ex-girlfriend's friend. She says, "Get back here, it's Lily, you've got to come back." And he says, "What's up?" And she says, "You just have to come back." So he drives back to this town in Illinois I call Navy Lake. I never Googled it. I hope there's not an actual Navy Lake.
I never heard of a Navy Lake.
There might be. Who knows? Okay. And so he's coming to the friend's house, and she's not only a friend of his ex's, with whom Finn is still in love. He's still in love with her, his ex. And this friend runs a book group and is also the wife of one of his colleagues, and whatever. So, but he doesn't like her that much, but he's coming because she has summoned him. So, okay. He knocked on Sigrid's door and rang the bell, both. One obeys, one's doom. "Thank you for coming," Sigrid said, closing the door behind him. He left his coat on. She hadn't offered to take it. "I almost missed the house," said Finn. Didn't you used to have a big tree out front?" "It got old," she said, "and then there was a storm." "What has happened?" he asked now, getting to the point. "You may want to sit down," she said. Oh my God. He sank down on the couch, his coat still on. The room, the white built-in bookcases, the hardcover books, the Mexican art, the new Mexican art, the one Picasso print whose black lines matched the wrought iron railing on the staircase in the corner, the furniture in shades called Don and Pete, like one's very own friends from elementary school. He had once thought such a jacked-up, bespoke-loving home would have cured everything, but he and Lily would have brought their own difficult and undissected unhappiness into every room. The ladies of the club met here each Tuesday night. He now sensed hate and witchiness and emptiness, not his or even theirs, but that of the universe, which had somehow gotten in and was swirling around. It shone around the absent ladies in whatever the opposite of a halo was, even though the ladies of the club had not yet arrived. "The group is not coming tonight," said Sigrid. "Okay." "Lily has finally done it," Sigrid said. "Oh my God," Finn babbled again. He dropped his face into his hands. "She had taken a turn," Sigrid said, "and was not doing well." Finn pulled his hands away. He knew Lily like the backs of them. That is, he never looked closely, too busy reading his own palm. But he had loved her always in that necessary, twisted, hurting way. The actual end of her, though he had imagined it, he hadn't actually imagined thoroughly. How his tears became icicles, now frozen mid-drip. "As I said," Sigrid, "she was not doing well. Why wasn't she in a hospital?" "She was. Jack took her there, but once she was there, she refused to have visitors." "But how did she get out of the hospital?" "She didn't. The doctors wouldn't allow it." He didn't know why this had been turned into a guessing game. It caused him to stand, his coat still on. "She jumped from the roof," he said. "No." He pulled his coat tightly around him. "She seduced the doctor in order to get his belt." He wasn't sure he actually said this aloud. Perhaps he did. For years, he had cleared her closets when she accumulated too many belts, their buckles like the stark hissing mouths of snakes. So how could she die, he asked. There was a long silence. He sat back down. How could she have died? They watch you like hawks in there, he said. They take everything away, any accessory to death. There aren't even curtains, not a shoelace or an earring or a hoodie string. Perhaps she hadn't died. She had staged it, perhaps, somehow to escape, and he would find her. She would know that. She would know how to do that, and this was the signal that she was counting on him to find her. Sigrid cleared her throat. The shower, she said. But they don't allow you to have anything in the shower, said Finn. Soap on a rope, I don't think so. And there was always a guard at the door. She wanted to die, repeated Sigrid. Yes, said Finn. The guard can only do so much, continued Sigrid. They often have their backs turned out of a small sense of privacy. What do you mean? Lily wanted very badly to die. How well Finn had understood this through the years. Very little on God's earth could entice Lily into wanting for long to stay on it. Even dressed as a clown as she cheered on others to embrace life with laughter. Her doctors were useless, Finn said. They all should have been set on fire in a public square. Statements such as this were why Finn had no friends who were doctors. I'll end there. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So yes, Lily is an embodiment of many of the dichotomies in this novel. She's a therapy clown. She tries to cheer up children and other people, but she is hell-bent on dying.
But yeah, she's a depressive and has, a long history of suicidality. But her boyfriend is really still in love with her. So.
And yes, love conquers all here because he goes, after this scene that Lorrie just read, he goes to the cemetery. It's a green cemetery.
Right.
Bodies are buried not in coffins, but in shrouds.
In shrouds, right.
And he's there searching for her grave, which is only marked perhaps by a grapefruit, because everything has to be biodegradable.
Right.
And there she is, above ground.
And there she is. And she seems to be waiting for him to come. And I think it's said somewhere in the book that he realizes that she knew he would be the only one to look for her, because he has a sense of never accepting the official narrative. And the official narrative is that she's died, but he's not quite convinced. So that's part of this love story, and it's, partly a ghost story. Or a zombie story.
Or a zombie story. Yes. So
or maybe none of those
maybe
things.
none of those. Well, also perhaps a metamorphosis. I mean, so here she is, and she's deliquescing. She's constantly changing, and you remind us about trees and plants. And
Yeah. And sometimes she seems to be sort of just rotting in place, but then other times she looks a little better. There's a kind of back and forth, and which mirrors their road trip, which also doesn't seem to be making a lot of progress all the time. Sometimes they're going around in circles and not really headed in the right direction. But they do eventually get to the other cemetery. The great Southern novel that's about carting a dead person from the place from their home to another cemetery, or from one place where she could be buried or is in a coffin to the cemetery she actually wants to die in or be buried in, is, of course, As I Lay Dying. And I do have a quote from that, from Faulkner in there. And of course, Faulkner also wrote A Rose for Emily, which is about hanging on to a dead person a little too long.
Yeah, a little twisted.
So it's a Southern thing.
It's a Southern thing. Well, and your quote from As I Lay Dying has the phrase animal magnetism of the dead body in it, and I kept feeling that Finn and Lily's magnetism was, transcending the body.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also have a little quote from O Susanna, which
Oh, God, yes.
which Susanna is actually, I discovered, the same name as Lily.
Oh.
In Hebrew, it's Shoshana, which means lily, which means the flower lily. So I put O Susanna in there. And I guess there's an interpretation of that song. I only just used that first.
It's a very odd phrase, I thought.
Right, about the buckwheat cake being in her mouth. There's an interpretation of that means she's died. That they used to do that to corpses, put buckwheat cake.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Doesn't this sound like a weird book? It is.
book.
It's very weird. But let it wash over you, and you can kind of get it. Because Donna was the first person to write about this book and totally get it. And I thought, yes, I knew someone was out there who would get it, because a lot of people become confused when they start this book and they don't quite, but you got it right away.
Oh.
And so I thought, well, this is who I wrote it for. I wrote it for Donna Seaman.
Thank you, Lorrie. Well, I read it like with my eyes this big, and it's amazing. And also, this is a novel to read and reread. I've read it several times at this point because there's so much in there. Every page, we could spend an hour talking about any of your paragraphs. They're so rich. And I kept thinking to myself, okay, so as a reader, I keep going back to this and being astonished all over again. Like, I thought I picked up on everything, but no, I never will. So I'm thinking about you writing this. You must have read this 100 times. I don't know.
Well, I had to proofread the galleys and things like that, and there's still mistakes. I still will correct things for the paperback.
But as you were writing it,
I did make a lot of little, I put a lot of little things to connect the two eras, and I thought maybe readers will get this and maybe they won't, and maybe it won't matter. Because that's true for every writer of a novel. They'll put things in and think, if a reader gets this, great, but if they don't, it shouldn't matter. You shouldn't have to get every little allusion or every little doubling that's in there. But you may notice some things, and they're all deliberate, most of them, except for the typos. But
well, and that richness, there's all kinds of fiction. It's sort of, there's story and there's character, but then for me, the deepest pleasure is the language and the descriptions and the surprising, kind of webs that get knit. And so, yes, you can read it on a book that has all that in it. You can read it on one level and go, wow, this is like the weirdest road trip ever.
Yeah.
Or you can read it and
Yeah.
go, this is making me think of, Ovid and still lives where they show the flowers rotting and the fruits rotting.
Yeah.
And you can really think about the Civil War in a very distilled way, but really wrenching.
Yeah, some reviewers said this novel is strange, tender, and gross.
Perfect.
And that was the pull quote from the novel. Strange, tender, and gross. I thought, yeah, that's true.
I thought, I always love descriptions of the living world, of nature. I think it's so important. The planet's so precious. And I love that there's just lots of things living. There's migrating swans who mate for life. I also really like, Finn doesn't accept the established narratives, as you said, including the constellations. Like he tries,
he can't
looks
figure
at the
them out.
stars, right?
He looks up at it just looks like a mess to
Mess
him.
up
He
there.
just thinks, how can people find, the zodiac through, these things? He just doesn't see he's not able to connect the dots.
Right, right.
On the other hand, he's sort of connecting his own dots that he makes in other parts of his life. But yeah, he doesn't understand this.
No, he doesn't understand that, but he wants to find the patterns. But he does go into this riff about conspiracy theories that I thought was illuminating in various ways.
Well, his idea of conspiracy theories is, of course, is the same as mine.
Really?
Well, a little, in that the things that we're calling conspiracy theories right now, like Pizzagate and the Democrats eat children and things like that, these aren't conspiracy theories. They're just delusional hallucinations, and they're just nutty. It's just nuttiness. Conspiracy theories when we were young, I'm older than you, but when we were younger, we'll say, just meant that more than one person was in on the plan. It was to sort of, a conspiracy theory would go up against, say, the lone gunman theory of Lee Harvey Oswald, for instance. Now, everyone knows that Lincoln was assassinated by a bunch of conspirators. There are a bunch of people in there, but it was probably wider than the 4 people who hanged for it. Well, they know it was. And so I became interested in that, and interested in Booth, and then all the rumors that surrounded the fate of Booth. Because he was on the lam for 11 days, and one of his co-conspirators got all the way to England, John Surratt, and they hanged his mother, Mary Surratt, thinking they could get John Surratt to come back, but he did not. He did not come back for dear old Mom. So Mom got hanged, and then John Surratt came back years later and was captured and stood trial for the assassination of Lincoln, and it was a hung jury, and so he was a free man. So this is all the sort of extra research I did. It's a fascinating thing. But so conspiracy theory just means a bunch of people were conspiring, and that's Finn's idea, that yes, a bunch of people did conspire. Society pulls the trigger. It's not just one crazy person walking down the street. It's society or a group within it that is conspiring. It's not the Democrats eating children and all that, which is so or microchips in your vaccines.
Yes.
Although I did read that it is actually possible to put microchips in your veins. I guess they have them that are that small.
Oh, yeah, they can chip you, like they do it to dogs.
Right. They can. Well, those chips you can actually see, but there are really tiny ones apparently. But I would love to have a microchip in my arm, just with a vaccine.
Yes, this was always working.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. It would assure that you get the pat down at the airport, which I always prefer to the machines. It's just more fun.
Well, I never volunteer for that, but I get pat down every time. I'm not sure why.
Wow, I once went through the machines and they pulled me over and they said, the machine says you have explosives in your head. And I said, welcome to my world. And then I got the pat down. They said, you're fine, get out of here. So
You give off some kind of energy.
well, they did. It showed on the diagram that the sudden color that meant explosives were buried in my brain. But I already knew that sort of. But at any rate.
That's some interesting equipment they have to detect
Yeah,
that.
well, they also then said, oh, this machine, it's always breaking on us, you know, so.
So, but artists are dangerous, we know that.
Yes, that's right, that's right.
Oh, I was looking, I really enjoyed your essay collection. So what can be made of this? Is that what it's called? And you wrote an essay on writing. And I love you have a theory in here about why we write. You say that it should be a compulsion to read and write, and that it's a bit of mental wiring the species has selected over time in order, as the lifespan increases, to keep us interested in ourselves. I thought that was such an interesting perspective on art and storytelling, that we have to keep engaging ourselves, to keep ourselves safe in some way.
Interested in ourselves, interested in one another. I mean, it is part of that, I think. I mean, if you didn't feel we were worth being interested in, you would just find something else to do. And there's lots of other things to do. And, you know, and if you don't want to be interested in people, you can, you know, do those other things. But that's what literature is about. It's a record of, here we are, this is what we're doing, here are the interesting things about our nature. And it's so, when you write a novel or you write a short story, it's like leaving pictures on the walls of caves, you know. You're drawing the buffalo that you've hunted, and you're leaving that for future generations to find. And saying, this is who we were, this is what we did, this is what we thought. And we found it interesting. Hope you do too, you know, that kind of thing.
It also seemed, sort of a call for, empathy, like some connection with each other.
Right, right. It's an enlargement. It's right. It's about compassion and learning about things that life is too short to give you firsthand. You know, you don't have enough time in life to learn about everything, so that's what books are for, to give you other lives and other people to know that you won't have time in your real biological life to encounter.
There's many things you don't want to encounter firsthand.
And
I'd rather read about it.
That's right. So you get to have an experience without actually having to have it. And that's another one of the beauties of it. Yeah.
Indeed. Your work always is very funny, incredibly witty. And I was so interested in the two different modes of humor in this novel. Elizabeth is, the sort of master of the understatement, sort of the devastating understatements. And Finn is just kind of doing stand-up all the time. He's just constantly making jokes.
Huh. I like Finn. But I think of him as sort of hapless and anxious and always trying to do the right thing and kind of mucking things up a little, but still trying. That's where your heart always is with in life and in literature. You're with the people who are trying and perhaps not succeeding that well. So they get credit for the virtue that they're attempting, but they also get a lot of sympathy and compassion for the things they muck up. Because, that every reader identifies with that.
Yes, no, he is.
But I guess he's funny. I don't know. The jokes are sort of nervous and they're habit,
right.
And they're also, when he's with his brother, it's just this is the way they talk. When he's with Lily, this is just the way they always talk. Lots of the jokes are not that funny, but they're meant to be sort of banter and just how they talk.
Yes, it's his way to express love.
Yeah.
He is.
And also car trips.
Car trips.
Yeah.
You got to be entertained.
Right. And then also in the hospice, there's a sense of nervous entertainment where he's trying to sort of, engage his brother, but not engage him so much that he will miss life. So it's like this weird thing he's trying to do, where he's trying to be amusing, but not too amusing, because this poor brother's going to die, and he doesn't want his brother to think that he's missing out on anything so great. As brilliant comedy, so he doesn't perform brilliant comedy.
He actually does measure out the stories. He's very careful about that, like it's medicine or something. Yeah. That's funny. That's great. I was also just so interested in earlier I talked about dichotomies, but there's so much doubling in this novel.
There's a lot of that, yeah. And that was all deliberate, so that you could sort of see some connections and not scratch your head and go, what do these two things have in common? But once you have these sort of slightly superficial things like two jacks or, two sets of siblings who are dealing with grief, one of them dying and dead, then you can, once you have those doublings, then you can sort of see the ways in which the whole pairing of these two eras is really about resurrection and things, things never really going away or dying. So there are those little buttonholes and buttons.
Exactly. Very beautifully done. And also just so frank about death and the body. The place Lily wants to go, and I found this fascinating, is a body farm. And both she and Finn are the children of police officers.
Right.
So they want to support forensics. I wondered how you first learned about body farms. I can tell you how I first learned about body farms.
Well, there is a famous body farm in Knoxville, and I did read about it a little. I knew my friend Ann Patchett wanted to be buried there because her father was a cop, but her husband won't let her. He said, "No, you're not doing that." So
these are places where the bodies are just left out.
They're just left
to
in a
decompose.
field to decompose, so that they can be studied by criminology students and future policemen or criminal justice people. It's a way of learning about the process of a decayed body, so you know how long the body has been there. There's lots of useful things they learn at the body farm.
My introduction to that was a series of photographs by Sally Mann.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right?
Oh, the one of the dog?
Well, she went to that Knoxville body farm, and they let her take photographs.
Let her do that because she's famous.
Because she's famous and really audacious and very, powerful. But
they don't want people going in
there.
Yeah.
But I was so struck by those photos, and then here reading your novel, I'm like, oh.
I haven't seen that, Sally Mann. It's a whole book?
It's a series. I think it's part of one of her books.
So you saw it in a show?
I saw it in a book, and they're also online.
Okay.
She talks about it in her memoir, which the title of which escapes me, which is a beautiful book.
The one about where she's where she starts with her childhood.
Yes, exactly. She talks about her life and her family and taking photographs. It's a really beautiful memoir, beautifully written, and her sensibility. It just really struck me that your novel and her sensibility, which also, she has a lot of humor and she's not afraid of the body and the things that happen with it.
Right, and she gets criticized for that.
Harshly, yes.
Because she did a lot of photographs of her children, which not everyone approved of.
Right.
But she wanted to be a writer, Sally Mann, when she first went to college, and then she became a photographer.
Yeah, and then she ended up writing also.
Yes, right.
But that, we shy away from that aspect of life. You know, we're just
Yeah.
want to sanitize everything. So
Yeah.
I kind of love that you made us just think about it and see it. I mean, in a way, your descriptions were even more powerful than the photographs because they're.
Well, I haven't seen her photographs, and now I wish I had, because then it just would have maybe helped me more, because I really just was making a lot of it up.
As you should.
I was just thinking, now what would happen next to the body, and wouldn't the skin kind of start to slide off? And, you know, I've seen very sick people, and so I just took that to the next step. She put her, do you remember the photographs of the dog that she put on the table? She
forgot about that,
She let her dog decompose in one of the rooms of her house and took pictures of that dog. And she also did this weird thing with her husband.
Right, because he became ill with
He had like MS.
disfiguring kind of, yeah.
And she tracked the kind of degeneration,
Right.
basically, is what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's fearless. And yeah, so it's intense. I mean, you know, part of me always draws back from that kind of thing, but then I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you know, Lily's, I mean, there's so much, there's humor in it too, but also you're saying, look what happens to the body. And
Well, I also wanted it to be sort of, you know, strange, tender, and gross. I wanted it to be something that doesn't get in the way for Finn, that he just loves her. That he just, so that sort of added to the love story part for me, that even though the reader can say, oh my God, this is sort of disgusting, that he refuses to be disgusted, even though you're sort of getting the reportage from him, from his consciousness and his observations. He's not put off by it. And in fact, he wants to marry her.
Exactly. He's happy they're back together.
He thinks they're back together. And,
even as she's falling apart.
Right, and that they should get married.
Yeah. Truly amazing love story.
Yeah, he does love her. He just feels, others don't quite believe it, and that, but he knows that she knows. She believes it. But so having some obstacles, every love story needs an obstacle, and so this is the obstacle for them.
Kind of the ultimate.
She's got a lot of maggots in her hair, but you know, it's not going to get in the way for him. He's going to triumph with his love.
He is our hero. It's true. Oh. Well, I guess my final question would be, since I've been reading your essays and reviews, I wonder if, I mean, now you have this book out, I'm wondering if you're still reading a lot and finding new work that's exciting to you, or?
Well, I just was stuck in traffic for 2 hours coming from O'Hare, so that's what's fresh on my mind right now. But yeah, I mean, I was in Berlin for 4 months, from January until the end of May, and it's made me want to read a lot of novels about Berlin. It's really a fascinating, tragic city. It's really kind of haunted, chastened, kind of deeply wounded, but trying to stir out of its wounds. It's a very complicated city. Probably the most tragic city of the 20th century. I would just, you know, risk saying that. Maybe there's another city that's worse or has had more tragedy. But the conversation about the reunification of Germany is still going on very intensely. The East and West, the wall coming down in 1989. And so one of I did read some novels before I went over there, but the novel I'm reading right now is the Jenny Erpenbach Kairos, or Kairos, I don't know quite how you say it, but it's set in the 1980s. It's a love story set in East Berlin. So I would really recommend that. It's been translated by Michael Hoffman. And she does things that I always tell my students not to do. Like, I mean, rules are made to be broken, I suppose. But I mean, she crams two different points of view in a paragraph, And I always tell myself, don't do that. Don't choose one point of view, and if you need to, at least start a new paragraph. No, they're jammed in there. She doesn't use quotation marks, but it's not confusing when she does it. It's very confusing when my students do that. And it's in the present tense, which I try to discourage my students from doing because I think I should. But whatever, she's doing all those things. The novel's very interesting, and it is a sort of brutal love story, but it is about the East and the West in Germany, and what all that meant, how complicated it was for the East Germans. And Jenny Irvin Beck was born in East Berlin, or East Germany. And many people think she's going to be the next German to win the Nobel Prize.
Oh,
So
I need to read that.
Yeah, she's a good writer. And she's, youngish enough to have more books ahead. So that's unlike poor Doris Lessing, who got the Nobel Prize when she was 89. She was like, what? Where was this, 30 years ago? I could have used this money long ago. But, she got
Isn't the story, she came home, she had a bag full of groceries in her arms.
Bloody hell, I can't believe this is happening. Right, she had her groceries.
Got her groceries.
She sat on the stoop. I know, she's like, I'm an old woman now.
Really? I'm busy.
Right. They don't get it right,
No,
but oh well.
we'll hope. Well, thank you so much, Lorrie. I love speaking with you. I'm going to see if we have any questions from our audience, and some of our audience are remote. So Jenny's going to help us with that.
People. Or because I teach for a living, I can call on you. I'll call on you, yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
the NASCAR thing, the Biden thing, it's just crazy out there. It's...
I'm here because I was enthralled by the title, and maybe I missed it in being late, because I wanted to hear, hear you, and maybe I missed it in those 10 minutes.
No.
I was enthralled by the title, and my mind went one place, and so I wanted to, if you covered it, what did you, mean by the title? Because, my mind was I was enthralled by the title, and I'm like, yeah, my mind went somewhere else with it, and I was like, I wanted to, see, since you're the author.
I'm going to repeat the question for our virtual viewers. The question was on what was meant by the title.
Right. What does the title mean? The title I had right from the beginning because I wanted to write about people who have trouble feeling at home in life and in the world. That it's kind of hard. But if they can't make a home of life, then they have no home. Then they're, and it actually, and I thought it sounded like a blues song. I'm homeless. I just thought I could hear it in my head as a blues song, and it does bear a lot of resemblance to some old gospel music that has a little bit of that in it. It's basically. Lord, it's about the homelessness of the singer, but wanting to be home with God, and so feeling or wanting to be home with Jesus. So it has some religious background in it if you do the song research part of it, but this precise phrase is not quite the name of a song, but it's close. and so I wanted it to be about the discomfort. Basically, Lily, and probably more the women, all three main characters, I think, are ill at ease in life, but especially Lily, who takes her own life. And so that's sort of what it's an allusion to, that, that. And so that was my working title. Then when I finished the book, whenever you write something, you're headed toward one thing, but you kind of end up over there, here. You don't actually land precisely where you hope to land. But I still like that title. Oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is that. It is that too. Yes, it is. It is about that. It's, if this country isn't my home anymore, what am I going to do? Because I'm homeless if this is not my home. So it has all that, and yeah.
I have a question from a virtual viewer who asks, I love your short stories and now I love your novels. How do you decide which of your ideas become short stories and which become novels?
Well, one just feels it sort of instinctively as a narrative artist, I guess. You just feel like if something you have is large and messy and has certain kinds of questions you want to ask, and is dealing with time. Perhaps it has two sets of time. If you have a stereophonic narrative or a bicameral narrative like this, it's very hard to make it work in a short story. Short story just has not enough space. So a short story has compression, and you don't have enough space to really make time your subject, time your medium. You probably should have only one point of view if in a story. Now there are exceptions, because there's Alice Munro. And she used to sit down apparently and every time try to write a novel. And it came out to be these wonderfully compressed novels that were actually long short stories. So she's very exceptional as a short story writer. So generalizations about the short story, you have to kind of then set Alice Munro aside because she doesn't conform to that. But in general, if you want to sort of discuss two different centuries, you need a novel. If you want to discuss two different sets of characters, you need a novel. I always think when I have these ideas for a novel that the novel is just going to be 2,000 pages long. Like, I just, like, my head is bursting. I've got all this stuff I want to write. And, Who Will Run the Frog Hospital was like that. I thought, oh, this is going to be so huge. How is the bookbinding glue even going to hold it? And then I got to page 142 and I was done. But there's no natural organic form to a novel, so it can be anywhere between 100 pages and 5,000 pages. It can, you have a lot of space to roam around in, whereas a short story really has formal constraints. Has to be less than 50 pages, pretty much. But Alice Munro, I have a little bracelet here. I've been on this book tour, and I was in Brooklyn, I don't know, a week ago, 10 days ago, and the owner of the bookstore said, I know people don't want to wear bracelets that have have their own name on them. So I made you a bracelet with your favorite writer, and it says Alice Munro on my bracelet. Isn't that fun? So that's very cool. I just thought I'd bring that up.
We have another one from our virtual viewer, Sarah, who asks, you've mentioned music a few times during the conversation. I wonder what you listen to when you are writing, if anything.
Oh, I never listen to music when I'm writing. I never do. It would just be so distracting. I love music, but I couldn't listen to it when I was writing. The music I'm trying to get at in my prose and in my sentences would be too disrupted by actual music. So I'm writing to an ear that's buried in my head, and I'm trying to sort of, write to that ear. But I don't write with music. Now, I know some writers do. And you can see, like with Ann Beatty, that she listens to a lot of Bob Dylan, because there's Bob Dylan everywhere in her work. But and she just, it works for her. I couldn't do it, so I don't listen to music when I write.
And I think we have time for just one more from Joe, I just lost Joe's question. Okay, Joe, who asks, what is your next project?
My next project. Well, it will have some Berlin in it, because I proposed a kind of loose project to the American Academy in Berlin, and they said okay, and so I had this research fellowship for those 4 months, and I don't quite know. I mean, I have some pages written, I have notes, but I also never talk about work in progress. But I had to talk a little bit about it in order to get this fellowship. But it will have Berlin. It will have probably contemporary Berlin and maybe some Berlin from the past as well. So
Wonderful. Well, folks, we just want to say thanks again to Lorrie Moore and Donna Seaman for being here with us tonight, and thanks to all of you for braving all of the traffic and the smoke. I want to remind you that, of course, Lorrie and Donna's work is available at your local Chicago Public Library branch. We also have books for sale in the lobby, and we'll start the book signing in here in just a couple of minutes. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Please check out other future author events coming. We have so much going on this summer and into the fall at chipublib.org. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Lorrie.
And if you want your book signed and you're in the first 4 rows, you can line up to the right of this table.